The following episode of Mind of a Geek is brought to you by the That Was Awesome podcast. That Was Awesome is the newest show coming out of Inked Geek Studios. Join us every week as we go back through wrestling history to do live commentary on past wrestling events, everything from WWE, WWF, WCW, and more. So be sure to go to inkedgeekstudios.com/thatwasawesome. And remember, that was awesome. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of Mind of a Geek. I am joined this evening by Mike Dicetomato Johnson. How's it going, sir?
Hey, how's it going? How's it going tonight?
Oh, it is going. It's been an eventful weekend, as some people will notice by the new bumper at the front of the show.
Yes, indeed.
Lots of things
Good
going
to hear.
on.
Good to hear new things are coming.
Oh, yes, indeed. I mean, between everything I've got going over at Inked Geek and the stuff that's going over on at Wolf King, it's cool that our studios have become friends and we're all working together.
Yes.
So, well, it's a pleasure to have you on. We've chatted a couple times. I was on Trivia Geeks with you, and you chimed in on the Star Wars spoiler cast with us over here. So,
Oh yeah, I definitely had some things to say there.
the waters are becoming cross-contaminated ever so slowly. So for our listeners who might not be familiar with you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do over there at Wolf King and otherwise?
Well, I am one of the co-hosts of Trivia Geeks. It's a weekly trivia podcast we do on Tuesday nights. You can catch us live on Diamond Club now at 9 o'clock, 9:15-ish. And, we try to get anybody we can from the podcasting community or, whoever else out there is available and just have some fun trivia games week by week. This past week, instead of tomorrow having a game, we actually had one yesterday. We had Nicole Spagnuolo and Steven Schleicher on, and it was definitely some good times were had by all in that playthrough.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a fan of both of theirs, and actually I've talked to Steven about coming on this show, so I'm excited to have him over here. I'm a big fan of major spoilers. I was long before I've even heard of, like Frog Pants or anything. It's such a great comic book source.
Yeah, I'd listened to the show a couple times, but mostly I catch them on Mondays, so on TMS.
Right. Well, that's cool. So do I still hold your greatest defeat of all time, or is
what was that? We lost.
Well, it wasn't
0.
It wasn't the total that was bad. It was the fact that we almost knocked you out before we even got to the bonus round because we almost more than doubled your score.
Oh, right. No, I've been having a losing streak lately, so hopefully it turns around relatively soon. But It's just the way it goes sometimes.
I can't imagine Carrie is all that easy to lose to. She seems like the one that would rub it in your face.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, but it's all in good fun.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. No, the show's a blast. I had a lot of fun when I was on there. A little bit of a reunion show when I was there, which was cool.
Yeah, that was pretty random. Catching somebody you'd known for so long.
Right. But it's funny how things come together like that.
Right.
In the digital world. So aside from doing the Trivia Geek stuff, you also mentioned that you're a web developer.
Yes, I am a web developer. I work for, let's see, how to describe them. So they were at one point monster.com.
Okay.
And they splintered off and did their own thing. It was some weird, like the way I understand it, at least the way that I've been told, that they were a part of Monster. They were a specific web development group for Monster. Then they kind of bought themselves out of Monster and became their own entity.
Okay.
And they've been that ever since. And mostly what I do is build corporate job sites. So, we have all sorts of crazy big name clients out there. Target, Disney, ESPN, to name a few. But every now and then get a chance to work on some pretty interesting job sites, and put my front end development touches on them.
Right. So what are some things that you do? Because like when you say web developer, to me, I have no experience there, and my thoughts there are, so I'm like, okay, so like my literal translation for that is that you're somebody who builds websites. Is that correct?
Correct. Officially, I am a front end programmer.
Okay.
So my job is to take the creative designs from the creative team. They're nice little Photoshop pictures, and essentially magic them up as reality on screen so that you can actually click and move things around as needed.
Interesting. That seems like it would be kind of fun.
It can be kind of fun. Sometimes the creative team gives impossible situations because
As creative
not
teams
often,
do.
yeah, not often do they understand how things actually function.
Right.
So they're like, "Can you do this?" We're like, "No, the web doesn't work that way." But they're pretty on par most of the time. It's just that every now and then we get one that has to kind of get thrown back and say, "No, this doesn't work like that."
Now, how often do you have a situation? I'm sure there are situations where you have the creative team that says, this is exactly how we want it. We don't want it any different. It must look like this. And do you ever have situations where you have a creative team that more or less gives you a little bit more of an open-ended scenario where you can add a little bit of your own flavor to the final product?
The creative team, not so much. That's more so on the client end.
Okay.
That'll communicate that along. And that'll show through creative whenever we get some kind of amorphous stuff where they're like, we kind of want this thing sort of here to do this sort of thing. And the project manager is essentially our intermediary between any of the other teams. So
Okay.
it's their job to kind of understand and translate from one hand to the next.
Right.
Sometimes they don't do a good job, and sometimes they're okay. But I mean, let's see, out of the probably end up with maybe 10 or so projects a month of web development. I may have to put one or two aside a month, and just completely bounce one back on average. So it's not doesn't happen too often, but it happens often enough that it does get annoying from time to time.
Right. It seems like one of those things where it's fun and it'd be entertaining, but I'm sure like any other job, it's also a headache. So
It can get tedious.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, I love it. So
Right.
it gives me, cause I went to school for web design, or I'm sorry, for web, neither of those things. I went to school for graphic design,
Right.
like pen to paper, build some stuff,
Right.
print design. And just kind of found my way into web development, because it was something to kind of do on my free time when I wasn't playing, Quake or Counter-Strike back in those days.
Yes. So are those, is that something that goes hand in hand with that? Or was this a new thing that you basically had to teach yourself from scratch?
I didn't take any structured web development classes. I've taught myself everything from scratch.
Oh, okay.
So it's been just a learning process over the past 15 years
Right.
of working through it.
So so the position that you're in, like there was no degree or anything involved in that. It was just something that there were skills that you taught yourself and you've just honed them over the years.
Absolutely correct.
So you have a degree that isn't getting used.
I don't have a degree at all, actually.
Oh, you don't? Oh, so
No.
you didn't finish off the graphic design?
I did not finish.
No.
That was it's one of the problems with Western Kentucky. It'll suck you in and it'll spit you out without anything.
Yeah. No, Maine is similar to that.
It's a great school, but you fall into its traps.
Right. Yeah, it's just one of those things. But hey, you know what? You got a career that's working for you. Then that's just extra time you didn't spend in school with extra money you would have had to pay.
Right.
So,
I mean, it's been a slow route of stepping stones, but
Right.
it's got me where I am. So
Yeah, if
being
you
persistent and learning.
if you build your way there slowly, you appreciate it more when you get there.
Oh yeah.
So that works out. So let's move on a little bit to something that you do recreationally,
Okay.
which is the D&D worlds, which struck me with an interest when you told me about it, because one of the ones you're talking about is Final Fantasy. And
Right.
I love Final Fantasy.
Oh, I do too. It's one of my favorite RPG franchises ever in existence.
Because it's the
And
best one.
which is the best one?
I said because it's the best one.
Oh, well, as a
Over,
whole,
well,
yes.
yeah, as they've definitely had their flaws. I feel like they've kind of sloped downhill ever so slowly since acquiring Enix, or since
Yeah.
Enix acquired them. But
Well, yeah.
I don't know
Whichever
which
way you want to
direction
put
it went. Yeah. But I want to ask before we get too far into it, which one is your favorite of them all?
9.
9.
9. I
Okay.
love 9.
All right.
So, 9 didn't become my favorite until way on down the line. So 9 was the first. No, actually, Mystic Quest was the first one I had ever played. But I never finished that one. I don't even know if you can count Mystic Quest because it's not really part of the group. But
No.
Mystic Quest was actually bad, so
Yeah.
I could just throw that one out anyway. So 9 was the first one I actually played all the way through. The first one I purchased, bought, sat down with 60 hours later,
Right.
and finally went through and beat it. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was a good time. The thing I had played most before was Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger, Secret of Evermore, Secret of Mana. So I was a big Square fanboy as it was anyway.
Right. So you had just never gotten around to the Final Fantasy series? Is that what it was? Or
Exactly. That was really what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I had heard of it. I wasn't terribly interested in 7 when it came out, but I didn't have a PlayStation then anyway, so I didn't really care.
Right.
And I didn't have one until I moved to college, and my roommate had a PlayStation. And I was like, well, Final Fantasy 9 looks cool, and if it came out, I'll buy that and play that.
Right.
And I liked it and enjoyed it. And then 3 years later, 10 came out on PS2. And that was like the first thing I bought in PS2. And I enjoyed 10 at the time.
Right.
I look back on it now, it doesn't hold up as well. And then after playing 10, I started to backtrack. Tried to play through 8 at least a dozen times. And I get through to the first disc and I'm done. I don't want to play anymore because 8 is horribly tedious. And the junctioning system is just a pain in the ass to deal with.
It's one of those things that, like, I thought it was interesting, but it's one of those things that's good on paper.
Right,
it's just
right.
not
And
fun.
it had a relatively compelling story. I wanted to know more of what was going on with Squall and Renoa and the whole weird, wait a minute, did he die or did he not die? What's going on with this thing here?
Right.
So yeah, I've gotten like a little bit past disc 1, and that's as far as I've allowed myself to go. And so then I went and tried 7, and I think disc 1 is about as far as I've got through on 7 either. I've just lost interest. I
It's
think
the
I'm
holy
spoiled
grail
with-
of Final Fantasy.
See, I have a problem with that. I don't.
Your problem is
understand that
incorrect,
It was
sir.
a groundbreaking Final Fantasy for its time because it was the first one on PlayStation in relative 3D of sorts. It has a great story on paper, at least from what I understand of the story. It's
Right.
pretty interesting. Advent Children was a great movie for a Final Fantasy movie. I played all the way through Crisis Core. That was really fun. So it has a rich world. I even tried to play a little bit of Dirge of Cerberus, and that was kind of a weird game.
Yeah, I don't think I ever really finished that one. I wasn't a big fan of Vincent anyway. He wasn't one of my favorite characters. Because Vincent was the one that you played in Dirge, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought from what I had experienced with the game, Vincent had a pretty interesting backstory along with
Right.
his allegiance with the Turks and his whole storyline with Lucrezia and Hojo. Yeah, Hojo, and
And your
the whole
memory
making
is a
of
lot more of a
Sephiroth and everything.
lockbox than mine. I remember Cloud, Sephiroth, Ares, and Tifa. Oh, Barret, the main cast. But then I'm
Right.
like, and then obviously Sid and all the other ones. But yeah,
Oh yeah. But I think it was until I played through 12 before I realized that 9 is like my go-to all-time favorite.
Right.
And I mean, still slowly went back and played through all of them. Played all the way through 6, played all the way through 4, which is what Final Fantasy
It
2
was
here.
2 originally here,
But
yeah.
yeah, played through 4. Tried to play through 1 and was like, okay, I can't do this.
Yeah,
This is too old.
they were really bare bones way back in the day. It's when I look at my favorite Final Fantasy, I look at the generation because I don't think it's fair, and they've obviously changed. Like the NES ones, was it 1, 2, and 3? I don't even really
Mhm.
think about. Like they were great for their day, but they're way too like. It's not even that they're old or they look bad. It's just that their mechanics are very broken.
Well, they're very simple too.
They are.
Yeah.
For the Super NES, 4 is my favorite. One that was 2 here,
Right.
with Cecil and Kane and just the
Tella and
yeah, tell the
yeah.
and the thing I liked about that Final Fantasy, which you lose in a lot of the modern ones, is when you lose Tella because of the storyline, you've lost your white mage. You get to a modern one like 7 or 8, and I forget how 9 was. 9 was actually my least favorite on PlayStation 1.
But they did that again in Final Fantasy VII. You lost your white mage.
Well, no, because you could just move your
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
right.
the whole materia system, and that was kind of one of the things that bothered me. I mean, looking back on it, at least with the PlayStation generation ones,
Right.
7 you can break entirely with the materia system.
Easily, yeah.
You can break 8 with the junctioning system.
Right.
You can break 10 with the sphere grid system because all you have to do is go through the sphere grid, go to the monster trainer, go through the monster trainer a few times, clear the sphere grid, get the level 4 spheres, redo the sphere grid again with everybody, and everybody is super uber powerful with 99,999 hit points and
Right.
win everything.
Right.
And 12 is completely and horribly broken with the gambit system, but it's fun as hell with it.
I
You
enjoyed
can't
12 quite a bit.
you can't break 9. Like 9 is there's no mechanics in 9 that allows the gameplay to be broken in such a way where your characters are horribly overpowered because of the nature of the game mechanics.
Right. That makes sense. Are you going to be picking it up when it comes out on Steam? Sometime I think later this month.
Is it? I haven't
Yeah.
heard that. Yes, I am.
They're finally releasing 9 on Steam, yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that'll be exciting.
And I played through 11 a lot too. Got like level 55 red mage. I love red mage. That's my
Go ahead, sorry.
yeah. I love red mage. That's my class right there.
Nice.
That's the one I fell in love with.
I could never get into 11. It was just too. I don't. I think like they hadn't quite got their UI down yet. Everything was just a little off. I loved
dated.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, I even played it when it came out, and it was just like it was cumbersome to log. Even now with 14, like they don't have a simplified linear like create your account, do this and do that. But I mean, but they're primarily Japanese games, and things are a
Yep.
little bit different over there. Things aren't as streamlined over there because they're a little bit smarter.
Well, yeah, they're used to a little bit of I guess a little bit of clutter and some
Right.
and some
And plus, we're used to
not really
Blizzard,
difficulty.
where everything's
Yeah.
right there in front of us on a launcher.
That's kind of the one reason why I liked 14. I've been playing through that. I'm like level 40 black mage,
Nice.
and
Are you in the AIE guild over there, or
yes,
Nice.
yes, in AIE guild. And I actually had to move servers to do that because I didn't know where the AIE guild was.
Gilgamesh?
First.
I think, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was on Midgard Stormer first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got like a level 35 paladin over there. So
But that's the one thing I kind of like about it. It feels like what I remember WoW felt like when I first started playing.
right,
But it's Final Fantasy, so that makes it that much
Right.
better.
right. I liked the concept of you only need one character. Like I
The
thought
job
that
system?
was
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like what like Guild Wars 2 did that a little bit as well too. Like your abilities were your weapons and stuff like that. But Final Fantasy it's like you just switch your classes because it's the job system.
Yep.
And I thought that
It-
was a lot of fun.
The only thing I'm worried about I mean, because I've only gone through two jobs, so I can get my black mage. Because you have to go like level 30 thaumaturge, level 15 archer,
Right.
and I started with an archer and decided, it's like screw it, I'll just go for this black mage first because since I'm already going through archer, it'll just be that much easier.
Right.
And and I completely forgot where my train of thought was going.
I'm going to
Um,
assume it was the same concern I have, where as you start leveling more jobs, you run out of quests to do. Is that where you're
yes,
going? Yeah.
that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was like, I want to go through and like level a few more jobs, but I'm kind of also sitting waiting because I'm kind of looking at the news here and there, and I'm like, is red mage ever going to be a thing? Are they going to try
Right.
red mage for Final Fantasy 14? And if that's so, I don't want to just eat up all the other
Do
quests
they not have red
with.
mages?
No,
Oh, they
they don't have
don't.
red mages.
No. Now the
And
red
they
is the mix, right?
the red mage is a support DPS, I
Right. So it's like
suppose.
the mix between black and white.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to describe them. I mean, they
Yeah.
have a little bit of they use a little bit of black magic, they use a little bit of white magic, they use a little bit of in between stuff. Mostly, they're there for buffs and debuffs, and just deal a little bit of DPS. They don't deal as much as a black mage.
Right.
Um, they're more they're more like an enhancement shaman.
Okay. All right.
You don't really want them to be doing like just major DPS. You want them to throw their totems down, keep everybody, on their buffs and take off stuff
Makes
if
sense.
needed.
Well, that
That's
would be an
probably about the
interesting
best way to
class.
describe them.
Yeah, that would be an interesting class to have. Like I said, I think around level 35 paladin, and I'm on Gilgamesh and AIE over there as well, and I enjoyed it and I was having fun with it. I don't remember why I had stopped, and then I just ended up never getting back to it. It's certainly something that I enjoyed. I got my wife into it; she was playing it too. She still swears that SWOTOR is her favorite MMO, and I don't know what she's smoking, but
I see. I haven't played any of those. The last one I played that was Star Wars was it Jedi Academy
I don't remember that one.
back
That
like
was
15,
yeah, it was
12 years ago.
yeah. Well, SWOTOR was great. SWOTOR was wild with lightsabers, but the problem was is
Okay.
it wasn't ready to be because SWOTOR it started as Knights of the Old Republic 3 because you
Okay.
had Coder 1 and Coder 2, which were essentially
Yeah.
Mass Effect with Star Wars or Jade
Yeah,
Empire.
BioWare.
Yeah, it was your typical
Yeah.
BioWare game. And then once EA bought them out, EA is like, oh, well, look at all the money Blizzard's making. Make this an MMO. And that's why it got delayed and changed and everything else like that. If you play through the Jedi Knight storyline of SWOTOR, you're essentially playing Coder 3. That's the storyline that they were going to do, which is also why a lot of people argue that the best and most efficiently written storyline for the vanilla content of SWOTOR is the Jedi Knight story, because a lot of the other ones were thrown in and written last minute because they had to write them, they had to get them voice acted.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and I enjoyed it. I play it off and on. The thing that really killed that for me was once Disney decanonized all that. I'm like, well, what am I? I'm not.
What's the point now?
Yeah, I'm not doing anything anymore. But anyway, but back to what brought Final Fantasy up. So the Final Fantasy D20 game that you're working on.
Yes.
Now, the one thing I want to ask, and then I'll let you talk about it, is it's interesting to me that you label it a Final Fantasy D20 game. Does that mean that you are targeting a specific world of Final Fantasy that we already know, or are you
No.
just doing it in that style, in that setting, that theme?
The style, setting, and theme mostly. I mean, as far as the world is concerned, worlds can be made up. You can give your own world a name and give it land and cities and whatnot. Um, I'm kind of mostly working on essentially the core mechanics of the thing. Trying to figure out which classes I want to work with, how to develop those classes. Um, Trying to one thing I've never used in D20 is the spell points system, which is kind of foreign to me because it's not how I would expect the spell point system to work, or expect a spell point system to work. Still trying to wrap my head around how that works because that to me makes it feel more like I guess you're role playing in Final Fantasy rather than the traditional D20 spell system where you have X amount of slots and X amount of spells per slot. It's just a different way to, I guess, see how that works. Um, but the biggest problem with it is completely redeveloping the spells list because using most of the typical D20 Dungeons and Dragons spells don't really apply as much in a Final Fantasy world. And then you lose your names because you need like Fire, Fira, Faraga, and Blizzard, Blizzara, Blizzaga, and all of those, and Cure and Haste and all that.
Well, you could
Which
just
there's
go really.
analogs.
You could just go really old school and have Fire 1, Fire 2, Fire 3.
And I mean, it's there. I'm trying to figure out how to, because fire your spells anyway in D20 will grow in power as you level up naturally. As you cast spells at a higher caster level, they get stronger. So that's kind of how spell points will work. The way, from what I understand, you have essentially 8 spell levels. Each spell level has its own casting cost. So your spells will fall into one of those 8 slots. But if you have, say, a level 5 slot available, you can cast a level 2 spell and pay a level 5 cost. And you have essentially a level 5 spell of that level 2 name. So like fire would say it's a level 1 spell. I can cast it at level 5 power. So that's how that would scale up in that way. At least the way that I understand spell points to work. And that's kind of the biggest chunk right there is building finding the analogs of the spells in D20 and you know moving them as needed and then just changing the name, and then class building. That's kind of difficult because there's weird classes like Red Mage, for example. Red Mage kind of becomes a little bit broken trying to mix a few things.
Right.
Summoner is actually really easy because there's 8 different schools of magic in D&D D20. Summoners are evocation. Yes, evocation. So pretty much all I need to do is go through all of the evocation spells in the D20 core rules, which are like summon monster 2, summon monster 3. Essentially, those would be the analogs for the templates to use for summoning, this summon, summoning that summon. But each of those are going to also have to have a component piece too, because I like the whole in Final Fantasy IX, each of the summons, the eidolons, were attached to a gem. So long as you had that gem in your possession, you could summon that particular summon. I think they did that for Final Fantasy 11 too. You had to have some sort of
It seems
some.
I would say it seems kind of similar to 7 as well, at least with the summons, because 7 was, it was the materia, and you had to have the
Right.
summon materia, equipped to be able to cast a summon.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, they made it a little bit more specific as they went on down the line, but that's kind of what I'm looking for. You go and you do your quest for whatever X relic, and you get to, you get to summon Romu, and he comes down and does a little thing and leaves.
Right.
Like he always does, because he's a big baller with his electric. I'd actually, 10 years ago, maybe, I had a test run of and I'd lost all of this information since on an old email account.
Ooh.
I'd had some stuff written down, and I had a test run of a Final Fantasy D20 game that I was running with 4 people, and it was pretty funny. One of the things I found was in some oddball D20 expansion, I guess, or I don't remember what they're called Iron Kingdoms. There's a gun mage class that's specifically set for this world that somebody built. So I took elements of that to build the Red Mage, and it ended up becoming overpowered. And I would nerf it here and nerf it there, take off a few things. It was still overpowered, and I said, screw it. Red mage is just a baller, a baller class. And the one of the things that they had was they had the ability to be a gun mage, and there's this substance that I've been using in my D&D games ever since called Mage Lock. And the whole purpose of Mage Lock, it's supposed to be like a in normal D20, whenever you focus magical energies through an object, it has a hardness factor, and eventually that hardness degrades and your object breaks. Mage Lock is, at least specifically for arcane energies, specifically made to filter those energies so that if your sword is made of Mage Lock, for example, it won't break if you just keep throwing magic spells at it. It's supposed to be like porous, like a magical sponge, essentially. So that's the whole kind of concept for working with gun mages in this D20 world. As far as, you have them craft their spell bullets essentially as a exhaustible resource, and you use that in order to cast their spells and focus at whatever.
Interesting. So I guess I kind of misread that then. So whereas, I mean, I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons in years, and I've never built my own world. So when I read it, I'm like, okay, so you're constructing like a Final Fantasy lore thing, but what you're actually doing is you're taking the game mechanics and you're building your own game out of that system using the Final Fantasy classes, the Final Fantasy spells for somebody else to take and be dungeon master and tell a story with, or you yourself. But,
exactly.
Okay.
I mean, the world, you get to a point where you build the core, you build the classes, some bits of lore and the spells to be used and feats if necessary, but usually not. Those are pretty interchangeable from one game to the next.
Right.
One game type to the next. But really the basics are your races, classes, magic. And you get that down, and building a world is relatively easy by comparison.
Right.
Because then it's just a matter of, build a city, start from that city. What's the next city over? Go there, do some stuff here. Is there a dungeon or an old ruin running around? Hey, this ruin is being ransacked by some mystical evil. You must go and destroy it because the priests of the area are not strong enough in order to do this, and they need help.
Right.
I mean, you spider web your way out.
You just kind of tell your story at that point.
Right.
So how far along are you with this particular project that you're working on here?
With the Final Fantasy one?
Right.
Well, back at square one, so I'm still remembering what I did to redevelop the characters, but that's kind of what I'm working on at first is
right.
Figuring out which character classes I want to start with. Because you can get in kind of a rabbit hole with those. But I mean, you have your base classes of warrior, archer, white mage, black mage, monk, and thief are your core. I think that's right. Yeah, are your core classes that I can think of off the top of my head. Red mage can technically be a core class if you want it to be. Summoner can be a core class if you want it to be. I haven't decided whether I want those to be core classes, but I'm still kind of working with the idea of those in existence.
Now, in some of the Final Fantasy games, didn't they? I mean, they had some weird ones that they brought in. Some like, didn't one game at one point have like a blue mage? Like,
right?
Yeah. So they've kind of toyed with their own mechanics every other iteration of their product.
Yeah, and I think Red 13 maybe was a blue mage. Well, okay, here we go. Final Fantasy 8.
Right.
Quistis was a blue mage.
The teacher.
Right.
Yeah.
And the whole concept behind a blue mage is that they would learn the abilities of monsters and use them as their special abilities.
Okay. Now, how did the class? Because I mean, you mentioned that, and like you mentioned Red from Final Fantasy VII, but I look at those and I'm like, with all of your abilities coming purely from either the materia or what you have junctioned, like, do they really have set classes at that point? Because their class really just becomes what they have assigned to them, right?
Well, they still have base archetypes.
Okay.
So you have Cloud as the paladin.
Right.
You have Barrett as the archer or gunner or ranged,
Right.
basically. So, but effectively archer. You have Eris as your white mage, Tifa as your monk, Yuffie is the thief or ninja. I I didn't play enough to really get a handle on what red was. I
Yeah.
think
I don't.
I didn't know what kind of attacks. If their limit break would really be the thing that would define them
Okay, that makes sense.
in that respect.
That makes sense.
Sid is your dragoon, just your classic lancer.
Right.
I'm missing somebody. I don't know who I'm missing. Sephiroth would be a Dark Knight.
Right.
So, I mean, even though they could do all kinds of different things, you know, they all had their kind of base archetypes that they sort of wanted you to cultivate as you were going through the story. And I mean, they did that better with the sphere grid in 10.
Okay.
To start you off on the track of where they want your character to be in, even though you could go outside of that once you get to the end. And essentially, you know, Yuna could just walk up on somebody, smack her with the rod for full 9 damage, and they're dead.
Right. Not supposed to work that way.
No,
That's kinda,
she's supposed to heal or summon.
I think that's a flaw with that system. Because I don't know if you've ever played Path of Exile, but it's basically a Diablo clone.
Okay.
It's made by Grinding Gear Games, but
Okay.
they have a similar concept. You pick your base class, and you have, you know, your Amazon, your warrior, you know, your Diablo classes.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you start at a certain point on a grid, and it's basically the same exact grid as Final Fantasy X. And you have your starting point, and you go. And if your character lasts long enough, and you kind of know how to build it a certain way, it's very easy to make a character that will break that game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just a flaw in the web system.
13.
Let's all bow our heads for a moment of silence for what was 13.
13 looked like it had so much promise.
It looked beautiful.
It looks pretty. It's a beautiful looking game. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great. And I bought that. I owned it for like 3 months, and I took it back. I was like, screw this game. It's dumb.
I have all 3 of them on Steam. 13, 13-2, and Lightning's Revenge.
That's I've heard they get better as they progress.
I wouldn't know.
I want to play through the first to get to the story, so the second one and the third one make sense, which is the problem. The thing I had with the biggest problem I had with 13 is that the world didn't make sense. There was nothing that, so the world was a constant hallway, just from point A to point B.
It was a very linear game.
There was no deviation from the hallway. You just kept going straight no matter what. And you always fought as many monsters as you needed to level up. And I thought that was the stupidest thing in the world. There were no towns, no NPCs, no nothing. The only thing for shops you had are these random little glowing shops that just kind of sat around in the middle of the road for anyone in the world to use, which didn't make sense to me.
You also have to kind of question an RPG game that has an auto battle mode. Like, we made them simple enough to where you can auto battle it. Why am I playing?
And you could kind of work that out with 12, which was part of the brokenness about it.
And they've gone back and added it to some of the old ones. Like some of the Steam released ones have the auto battle mode, which I get it if you're farming monsters, but I shouldn't be able to progress that way. I could fight bosses in 13 with the auto battle mode. That's a problem.
Oh man, monster farming was a real thing in 9. Because you had to, I know you had to sit around in a few spots and farm for a little while to grind out a couple levels,
right?
For random little things. Oh God, but I got as far as after you get Shiva, I guess, And the characters, I couldn't give a shit about the
No,
characters.
like the douchey hipster with like the bandana on his head or whatever, and
Snow, yeah.
yes, with a horrible name. Um,
Yeah, they had Lightning, Snow, Fang, Vanille. Saz was the only cool character.
like I thought
And
Lightning was cool, and I wanted to learn more about her, but I didn't care enough to have it pull me through the rest of the game. Yeah, in the chat, a misunderstood ninja said the same thing. He said what you said. 12 had that same issue with the auto battle character
well,
prioritizing stuff.
so 12, the great thing about 12 is that it gave you a limit, at least, to how your auto battle worked out. Because you had 12 slots to build a series of programming if then else statements. And you were always having to constantly shift around your 12 spots depending on your what you were wanting to fight.
Right.
But for the most part, you could run with two different setups. You could have one team to have essentially a one tank, and you just reverse all the damage from the boss and decoy onto that tank, so the boss always just focuses on that tank. Yeah, the other two just sit there and heal the crap out of it, and you just slowly beat down the boss. And then there was the other one where you have everybody attacking and they just heal each other, which works for most things. But you kind of needed the one tank for the crazy end battles like Yazamat and Omega Weapon, which are ridiculous in that game.
I will say, speaking of weapons, and I know you don't really have a comment because you said you didn't get that far, but in my opinion, 7 had the best weapons. The weapons
As far as the character weapons?
well, no. The weapons that, like the extra final bosses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like
okay.
they had Ruby and Emerald, and you were talking about breaking the game. Those bosses were designed for you to break the game.
Right. And in 12, they did the same thing with Yazamat and Omega Weapon. You kind of had to not just get pretty far, but you had to excuse me, you had to break the game a little bit in order to get through with them.
Right.
Because it would get to a point with Omega Weapon, and you had to go deep down through the crystal in 12 to get to Omega Weapon. Like, it was a journey to get there. And you had no map while you were in the crystal. You had to remember which way to go and what all the little detours meant and what all the little teleporters meant, because they didn't give you like this is this floor, this is that floor.
Right.
Weird names. And Omega Weapon could do, like, you could be at level 99, it could just do just death right on you. So you had to be there, ready with a Phoenix down at the very least, or or Rays to keep them going. And they both had their little counters of health. They didn't have just one big health bar. They had like 20 big health bars. And Yazamat was the craziest one because you had to leave the battle. You could leave the battle, go and do stuff, come back to Yazamat, and it would be on the same health counter if you didn't come back too long.
Right.
If you didn't stay away too long. Because it would slowly gain some health. So the trick was you went through, you fought, you kept, doing your tank and fighting through, and it would start just doing rounds of death, just auto death over and over and over. And it would death your characters as soon as you could res them. So you left the arena, go do some stuff for like 10 or 15 minutes, come back, restart the battle essentially.
Right. With the health pool still lower.
Right.
Yeah, the weapons in 7, like, I'll never forget. I mean, me and a couple of my buddies, we put hundreds of hours. Like, that was our Elder Scrolls. Because there was one materia, and it was on an island, and you needed a gold chocobo to get to that island, because you needed a chocobo that could fly as well as land on mountains.
Yep.
And it was
chocobos.
It was the Knights of the Round materia.
Yep.
And it was... What's that? Oh yeah. So you
miming Knights of the Round.
You max it out, you mime it, and then like you just we max leveled Knights of the Round 3 times. So all three of our main players or our main characters had it. And then all 3 of them had mime. And it was like, and that's how you took down Emerald Weapon. Emerald was a joke. And that was cool because it allowed you to go that extra mile. Back to 12.
I've heard those stories.
12 is one of those ones where I would love an HD remake of it, or at least a PC release of it, because I'd love to go back and play through it now, through the eyes of an older gamer who can respect maybe the complications of it more.
I've heard that that's one thing that they're kind of tossing around. Somebody kind of slipped up at um, one of their music concerts, um, essentially alluding to the that there is being uh, some orchestral work that was being done for a re-envisioning of Final Fantasy 12 at the very least. I don't remember
Huh.
with the exact words, but they were kind of leaning to that. And the next day, a statement from Square was like, "Wait, wait, wait, wait." So there's some stuff going on there with that. And,
Right.
I've been playing it a little bit recently on just a PS2 emulator,
Nice.
and yeah, I mean it'll run fine on most any computer today.
Right.
And it still looks good.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, they seem to be getting better. Like I remember, oh, what was it? Year and a half ago, maybe now, we got a quote from one of the leads at Square, and because we've been begging for a 7 remake since 7, like since we had better graphics, we wanted to see them in better, like looking better.
Yeah, since Final Fantasy X came out, that was
Right.
the benchmark right
And
there.
Advent Children. Like once Advent Children was released, we were like, all right, we want
Yeah.
a game that looks like this. And now with PS4, we can.
Hmm.
But but they came out and they said we are not going to remake 7 until we make a game better than 7. Because that has been their benchmark for this whole time. Like there are fans that like and prefer other ones, and there's people who legitimately don't like 7, but 7 has the largest fan base.
Yeah, I mean, and I love what seven means to the franchise and means to the fan base. It's simply just not. eh, I probably would have liked it more had I been able to play it when it came out and enjoy it more then. But going back on it after playing, ones after it, it's it it's it's dry to me. Like it lacks.
I can understand that. And that's one of those things where it's, again, like you said, you didn't have it there at launch. You had it so many years after because you had played
Mhm.
9 beforehand. So, and at that point, you're going into it with all this hype. And with the hype around Final Fantasy VII, nothing can live up to that hype. Like even what saves it for us is because we're nostalgic. Like I'll boot it up and I'll be like, wow, this looks like shit. And then I'm 5 minutes in and it's beautiful again because I'm 12 years old playing Final Fantasy VII again.
And to be honest, the Final Fantasies where they didn't go so much in the future, I feel are better worlds. I mean, just in general. I mean, you have Gaia and Terra in 9, beautiful, beautiful worlds.
Right.
Just you swords and sorcery. Back to formula on Final Fantasy, and your old mist powered, excuse me, your old mist powered airships,
Right.
and same thing with 11, and in 10, it was a weird, odd mix. So the the first thing I didn't like about 10 was the music. And I remember that was the first thing I ever noticed when I was playing 10. The music didn't strike me as Final Fantasy. And I look back on it and it does more so than 13, but still not more than I think that they were intending for.
Right.
Like 9 gets it for me, 12 gets it for me, but the same guy that did 12 did the music for Tactics, another one I actually never played.
So great.
I see. I've heard that it's great, but I've heard that it's like a lifestyle for Tactics because
It
you will devote hundreds of hours
it
into.
it is. It's I fell in love with it because I mean, you want to go way old school. We're talking Genesis days. I was a big fan of Shining Force.
I don't remember that one.
Shining Force, it was, I mean, think of it as, I mean, it was basically like a D&D game or maybe a Warhammer game. You had your grid layout. Your character could move so many spaces. And it was one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest games to ever come off the Genesis. And I was opened up to it. I don't know if your area had it, but way back in the day, there was this system or this attachment for the Sega Genesis called Sega TV.
I never heard of that one. See, I wasn't a Sega kid, so
Oh, okay. So Sega TV was way before its time. It was a device that you put in your Genesis and a coaxial cable plugged into it, and it came from your cable company, and you got
okay.
a selection of Sega games every month that you
Oh
could
wow.
play, and it was like streamed over the coaxial. And so it was way ahead of its time, and it was really goddamn expensive. But I remember Shining Force was, I mean, that's how I ran into games like Comic Zone.
Oh, I remember that
Oh
one. Yeah.
yeah, and like Altered Beast, like all these games were games. Exactly. So these were games that were introduced to me because I'm not old enough to have got that arcade generation. So I got all these ones through that. But that's how I was introduced to Shining Force. And it was such an amazing tactical RPG. And Tactics is Shining Force, but better for the modern age. And
Okay.
yeah, and what Misunderstood Ninjas agree in the chat room agrees. It says the whole Tactics series is amazing. The PS1 game, Tactics Advance for the Game Boy Advance, and then Tactics Advance 2 for the DS. And the cool thing about one of the Tactics games, I believe it's the PS1 one, and Ninja, if you can correct me if I'm wrong here, if you name your character Cloud, it will turn him into Cloud, and his weapon will be his weapon will be the Buster Sword.
That's nice.
So, but no, Tactics was but it's my God, you want to talk about a game that takes a lot of time. I mean, because they're tactical battles. If you don't position your characters right, you're gonna lose.
Yeah, like chess pieces.
Right, exactly. It's Final Fantasy chess.
And I mean, I've seen people play it. I've seen people go nuts with the mathematician and just decimate like the board with a good mathematician.
Right.
Because apparently it can work some crazy magic. But it's not one that I've ever been able to put any time to. I think I owned, which I think for the Game Boy Advance, I owned Tactics Advance.
Right.
I may have played like 5 minutes of it and put it down and then never played it again.
That's a game where I would love to see, and I mean, it would be great if it was Final Fantasy, but it wouldn't have to be. Because if you look at the style of that game and the way it's played, and you have like, your 5 or 6 man party versus your 5 or 6 man party, it's a single player MOBA in a way. Almost. Because you both start on opposite sides of the map. You tactically work your way up the map, and it's all about positioning. It would be cool to see a turn-based style tactics-ish MOBA-esque game that was based around that type of gameplay, but online multiplayer PvP.
I'd try that.
That would be a lot of fun.
You know what else I wish that Square Enix would do?
Drop
Triple
Enix.
Triad.
Yeah.
I want Triple Triad. I want it outside of Final Fantasy 14 because it's pretty fun in 14.
Well, we were
to be honest, I've sat a couple hours and played through Triple Triad.
Oh yeah. Well, like we were talking on Geek Access yesterday about Final Fantasy X because Corey is like in love with it. He adores that game, and I don't know why, but I had said I thought one of the biggest dropped balls that they missed was not making Blitzball a standalone game.
Oh yeah, that would have been a good standalone game.
You get a standalone Blitzball online multiplayer, like that would have been incredible. And then they would have had a sports game franchise.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
Because
I was surprised they didn't do it either.
Right. And then I thought for sure with the HD remake of it, especially with it coming to where it came to the PS4, I thought they were going to say, one of the added features of the HD remake is multiplayer online Blitzball. Like, why? What didn't somebody do? Like, somebody screwed up.
They probably didn't think it was going to be anything at least Blitzball wasn't going to be anything that popular. And they're sorely mistaken.
Yeah.
I would have sat there and played hours of Blitzball online.
I would have bought for a Final Fantasy game I didn't really care for. I would have bought the HD remake just for online Blitzball. That would have been a lot of fun.
I mean, hell, they took Gold Saucer out of Final Fantasy VII and dropped it in the 14.
Oh, I know.
Nuts.
It's awesome.
I love Gold Saucer.
I waste so much gold up there.
Speaking of which, I wonder what the Cackpot drawing is now.
Oh yeah, that
it was up pretty high last time I checked it.
Between that and Powerball,
man,
you get your Powerball tickets for Wednesday.
Tomorrow, I'm getting them tomorrow.
Yeah,
I got to get them before closing time.
1.3 billion. No, it's not tomorrow. It's Wednesday. You have to get them by
Today's
Monday.
Monday. Correct. Okay. Yeah. So
So you have 2 days. But yeah,
right.
1.3 billion, $850 million cash value.
Yeah. I think I'll drop 20 or $30 on a chance at 1.3 billion.
Right. There's that. What was that thing from Dumb and Dumber, where Jim Carrey's talking to that girl and she says that thing to him and he goes, "So you're telling me there's a chance?" And
Right.
that's the meme for Powerball right now. But no, wouldn't that be nice, huh?
It would definitely make things a little bit more interesting.
You'd get that Final Fantasy game out a lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd have time to work on it. I would hire flunkies.
There you go. Well, let's go. Since we're all into Final Fantasy, we might as well stay there. Let's go into the future for a little bit. What are your thoughts on 15 that you've seen so far?
I can't wait till it comes out for Xbox One because I don't have a PS4. Probably not going to get a PS4. I don't know if I want to get a PS4 just for Final Fantasy 15 yet. Like it looks good. I'll give it that. Like it looks like
It's
a
going to be a
beautiful game.
multi-platform launch, isn't it? Or is it timed exclusive?
It's timed exclusive.
Okay, see, I have them
But
both, so
from everything I've read, it's timed exclusive.
I have them
Like
both, so I don't pay attention. So
Yeah, I've heard them say some news about Xbox One, but they're like we're gonna release it on PS4 first. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever.
right,
That'll give it time to go through the reviews, and I can see if it's a game that I really want to play again.
right,
Because I'm not. It so far it looks a little weird. Like it looks like it has all of the politics of Final Fantasy 12,
right.
which honestly wasn't the worst part of 12. The politics were kind of interesting. The villain was a little old hat and redone because they did the same thing with Seymour in 10 and the same thing with Sephiroth in 7. If I can't have it, no one can villain.
Right, and that was kind of the
And 9.
and Zeramis was kind of that way in 4.
Oh, okay,
It's
yeah.
like I want all the power, I'm going to destroy the world.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a pretty common. Apparently, it's a pretty
Yeah.
common villain for Final Fantasy, and every now and then they nail it, and then other times it's just like, I guess Kefka was kind of like, no, Kefka just wanted to destroy everything because he could. He was different in that way. He was more interesting that way, at least. To me.
Yeah, Kefka he was like the crazy. I don't. Was he a clown?
Yeah, he was the crazy clown.
Yeah, that's right.
He was the Final Fantasy Juggalo.
Oh, crazy clown villains. But
But yeah, I mean that was the thing that bothered me with at least with 12 in that aspect. So I'm kind of wondering who the villain is or what the villain is in 15, how they're going to structure this world, and why are they running around in this crazy Audi?
well, from what I understand, it takes place in like maybe not Earth, but it takes place within a realm of reality, in a modern time. So, like, I remember one of the cutscenes. It was them driving by a gas station.
I mean, 7 and 8 were a relatively modern time.
Well,
too.
yeah, that's true. But it just seems to be that they're venturing away a little bit. The combat seems almost a little 12-ish from what I've seen.
Yeah, it looks like they're doing, I guess, some level of they call it active dimensional battle.
Right.
That was in 12 because by the way, the best. So they've had active time battles since the beginnings of Final Fantasy.
Right.
It didn't finally mature and become what it needed to be until Final Fantasy X-2. Final Fantasy X-2 has the most solid active time battle system of any of them so far.
Now, that was the Charlie's Angels one, right?
Right. It's sad that it was a horrible story with kind of lackluster characters at that time. But the combat system is great, and they bring the job system back as the dress spheres. But still,
Right. Hey, I talked up that one. Now that you mentioned, I talked that up on Geek Access yesterday. I liked that one. I actually liked that one more than I liked 10.
I like it more than I like 10 too. Like mechanically, it's a great game. It has it's very solid there. It's just it had a weird story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you expect? What do you expect?
Right.
It's amazing. In hindsight, you go back and you look, and we go all the way back to the NES and that very first Final Fantasy game, and why it was called Final Fantasy.
He thought it was going to be the last one.
Well, yeah, because
the only one.
Every game he made before them was shit. So this was his last hurrah. This was his Final Fantasy. And now, all these years later, we're waiting for 15. We've got MMOs, we've got spin-offs, we've got movies, we've got sequels. It's incredible what this series that was meant to just be like a whatever became.
Well, I mean, Final Fantasy doesn't even have Hironobu anymore. I think the last thing he did any work on was 12. Because Hironobu, he left Square some years ago. He has his own development company now,
Right.
Because he did a game relatively recently called The Last Odyssey.
Right. That was a great game.
I didn't like it.
Really? I enjoyed it. That was one of the most recent single player RPGs that I finished front to back.
I probably played maybe 20 hours of that game.
Right.
I don't even remember where I stopped at. I played a long way through that game. I liked the concept of, the guys were immortal and they had these, but every battle felt like a chess match. That's what I didn't like. Like even just rando, I should be able to walk up and just, slash kill, move on. You couldn't do that. Every battle took like 15 minutes to go through.
There was no Final Fantasy 13 auto battle in that game.
Well, it wasn't even about auto battle. Like you couldn't over level on anything to kind of get a one up on the creatures. Everything was always the hardest it could ever be. And it was always, these crazy combinations that didn't really work out with the characters that you had. So it literally was a chess match that you had to work out. Like, okay, you hit this time, you hit that this time. And it was slow and tedious. And the story, I was liking the story, but the gameplay, the battle system I was getting bogged down in that. And I couldn't handle it.
Makes sense.
I didn't want to do it anymore.
And that was a 360 PS3 title, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or was it 360? 360 only.
360.
Maybe?
I know it was on 360.
Right. I played it on 360, but
yeah,
I didn't know if it was multiplayer. I don't remember. That's I think.
And
go ahead.
And the one thing I thought was funny is that one of the characters was the little girl. What's his face's granddaughter?
Oh, I don't remember.
Lil Pickles from Rugrats, like the same voice.
Oh, really?
That bothered me too. I'm like, all I see is Rugrats when I play this game.
That bugged me in Grand Theft Auto 4. I couldn't play through GTA 4 and take it seriously because whenever I heard Nico talk, it was Ren from Ren and Stimpy. Like,
okay, yeah,
like that's what he is. And
I never catch that.
I loved Ren and Stimpy. So the very first time I heard him talk, I'm like, it's fucking Ren. It's like I can't take him. So then, obviously, his cousin then was, Stimpy.
Yep.
And he fit that bill pretty well. He was dumb and useless. But
it's kind of sad that Ren and Stimpy turned into SpongeBob.
I know. But oh well. Hey, they still have the classics that are on. I think it's on. I don't know. I see my wife have it on with the kids every once in a while. I think it's on like Hulu or something.
Yeah, they do, and they still hold up too.
Oh yeah, all those. Like, it's amazing what cartoons have become and what they used to be. Like, you go back to like Rocko's Modern Life, and he was a sex caller. Like he worked at a phone sex hotline. That would
never thought about that until, literally like 10 years ago.
That would never work today. I mean, granted, they throw things in there, like with SpongeBob, there was that episode where his teacher apparently is a royal bitch or whatever, and he left class and he said, "See you next Tuesday." So we know what that's supposed to mean. At least I think we do. Take the letters from it. See you next Tuesday. So
okay. Yeah.
So they sneak stuff like that in. But Hold on. Misunderstood Ninja says, fun fact, the actor playing Bebop in the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie coming out is the same guy that does the voice of Uncle Ruckus in the Boondocks.
Yep.
I didn't know that. I've
Yep.
never watched the Boondocks.
Oh man. That's one you need to pick up.
Is
That
it?
is that
I
that's
assume
a
it's streaming
it's a
somewhere.
classic. I don't think so.
I have Netflix, Prime, and Hulu, so because I don't do cable, I'm a cord cutter. So
Let's see. Can I stream it?
yeah, if only we had
Um,
something like the internet, right?
Yeah. Let's see. I have them all downloaded because I'm a pirate.
I made it.
Boondocks. It is not streaming anywhere.
It's not. Oh, I'll have to iTunes it. I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's really good. Uncle Ruckus is the character that makes Boondocks.
Nice.
Did you ever watch any of the Friday series?
No.
No. Okay. Then you
No.
wouldn't.
I'm actually.
That wouldn't make a difference either.
I had meant to, and actually, you know what's keeping me from it is Scott and them keep talking about watching it on FilmSack. So
Oh, okay.
I'm waiting for them to watch it on FilmSack. So I'm going to watch it and then listen to their sacking of it.
That's good.
But,
Interesting.
but who knows? I mean, maybe that will get preempted by Streaming Geeks because I'm doing that with Sean and Janine, I think. The show we're doing over
Jeannie.
at Wolf King. Jeannie, yeah. So, I mean, if that show ends up getting picked for that, I'm super excited for that. Our pilot episode is going to be a Nick Cage movie. So pumped.
Oh, which one is it? Can we know yet?
I don't know. Sean, I apologize if this isn't supposed to. I'm going to unveil it right here because I am super excited because I love Nick Cage. I will watch anything Nick Cage is in. I wish somebody would make that Nick Cage Superman movie. It is called. Hold on, Facebook Messenger sucks. Pay the Ghost.
Pay the Ghost?
Yes.
Is that the one where he has the bees and he's wearing the helmet of bees?
That I don't know, but all I know is he said Nick Cage plus ghosts equals gold.
Okay, interesting.
And all I can think of is I could talk to ghosts for hours.
Yeah, Nick Cage to me is like Samuel L. Jackson, who will never say no to any role.
He shouldn't. He's great. Even in the movies that
Right.
suck, he's good.
Yeah,
Like
he's the one thing that makes the movie completely watchable.
right, like and all these ones that people make fun of. Like I loved Drive Angry. I thought Drive Angry was great. The
was
one
funny,
where he comes back from the dead to save his daughter.
Yeah.
And then I mean, The Rock is obviously a classic. The chemistry
That's
between
some classic. Is that Michael Bay though?
that was Michael Bay, and
Yeah, that's some classic Michael Bay right
the
there.
chemistry between him and Sean Connery. And then
How does that go? About the prom queen.
the quote. I know. Okay. Now I'm gonna use that internet
losers-
tool.
Losers don't fuck the prom queen.
No, it's Hold on. I know. But anyway, no, and that and Con Air.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I mean, look at that Sean Connery prom queen quote. I don't even need to put in The Rock.
Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen.
There we go. Then he goes, Carla was the prom queen, or whatever the hell his wife's name was.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, that was such a great movie. And then the one I really love that people usually don't like is 8mm. I thought he was excellent in 8mm.
I don't think I saw it.
It's really good. It's about he's a private investigator.
Okay.
And we're going so off target here, but that's okay. That's what the show's for. He gets hired by an elderly woman whose elderly husband passed away. And this man was super rich. Like the whole town knew who he was. And they had found an old 8mm reel of film in his safe locked away. And they watched it, or he watched it, because she had seen it and he watched it. And it was a snuff film. Like there was a girl that was raped and murdered. And this wasn't like mass produced. This was like something that the man had made for him. So the woman doesn't care about the fact that it's a snuff film. She just doesn't want to live with the notion that perhaps her husband had this woman murdered for his sexual pleasure.
Oh,
I know the show just took a dark turn. So anyway, so he goes off on this amazing journey into Las Vegas to try and find the person that made the movie. And like this movie has like Joaquin Phoenix in a very young role where he plays like the manager over like a seedy porn store. He Oh, I'm being text messaged by somebody listening to the show saying that his the bee's mask thingy is the Wicker Man.
The Wicker Man. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so 8mm came out in 99. Yeah, it has Joaquin Phoenix, James Gandolfini is in it.
Okay.
Peter Stormare is in it.
Don't know who that one is.
Peter Stormare, have you ever seen Prison Break?
No.
No. Peter Stormare, The Big Lebowski, Armageddon.
I've seen The Big Lebowski.
He was.
Oh yeah, all those
was-
Coen brother movies.
Yeah. He's done a bunch. He was the.
Oh, he okay.
Yeah, that guy.
Okay, he's the crazy Russian in Armageddon.
Yes. Yeah. Which is funny because in like what is it? What movie was it? Oh, I think in Prison Break he plays an Italian guy.
Okay.
But I know. Anyway, 8mm was great.
Oh shit! Yeah, he was in Fargo.
But he
He
yeah.
plays the devil in Constantine
Yes. That was another one of those
or
movies.
Lucifer. Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. Lucifer the devil, whatever. But yeah, no, Nick Cage, man. Nick Cage is gold. You can't go wrong with Nick Cage. Well, you
really
can't.
Can't.
Like Nick
No,
Cage, you can't go wrong
really
with. The
can't.
movies you can. Like I don't know. He's got some really interesting things out there. No, he doesn't say
Yeah.
no at all.
I still think it was an odd choice for Nicolas Cage as Johnny Blaze.
Yeah,
Rider.
but again, the movie sucked, but he was great.
Right, it worked. Like he did it. I couldn't think of anybody else that could do it better with what was given. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, like anything else, I'm excited for the Con Air sequel.
oh god,
Because from what I
really?
hear, it's supposed to go to space. Like, I shit you not. Like, that really is the plan. It's Con Air 2. Let's see here. Director Simon West says that if Con Air 2 does get off the ground, no pun intended, it's going to take place in space. It's going to be Con Air 2, Con Air in space. All I know
Okay.
is it's going to be a prison space shuttle with Nicolas Cage on it.
Right.
So as long I don't think that we're going to get John Malkovich back, but if we get Buscemi, we're good. He'll go out there and like
Right.
creepily stalk some like young alien child.
Oh man.
He was such a creep in that movie.
So it's going to basically be Alien 3, but on a ship without the alien.
Well, we'll have Buscemi.
Okay, fair enough.
He'll be the one that torments everybody. Well, I don't want to keep this going too long, but I do want to say thank you very much for coming on the show tonight.
No, man, thank you for having me. It was a fun time.
Yeah, definitely. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to have you back.
Anytime, dude.
I want to let our lovely listeners know where to find you.
Yeah, you can always find me on Twitter and on Twitch at Dicetomato. You can sometimes find me in the Tadpole also at Dicetomato. Usually I'm in there for TMS. And let's see, Trivia Geeks Tuesday nights, 9:00 on Diamond Club. Check us out. We're off this Tuesday, but we'll be back next Tuesday, and a whole new fresh set of guests, and ready to go for some more trivia.
Very cool. Very cool. I will say for this show, I'm gonna give you guys. We've done a lot of scheduling this past week, so unlike I don't know who's coming next week, I'm gonna give you guys this awesome lineup that we're getting from Mind of a Geek here. So next week we have your co-host Sean Burns coming on the show, which is really cool. So we're gonna get some double Trivia Geek action here.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Following Sean, we've got Hammond Chamberlain from
Yep.
Beyond the Playlist and Grumpy Cast. Excuse me. Monday, February 8th, we've got the Trek nerd himself, Daryl Skeels, coming on the show to hang out with us. Monday, the April February 15th, Carrie is joining us, so we're going to get the whole Trivia Geeks gang here. Should be fun. And then
Carrie is already trying to claim Daryl for her team. And I'm like, no. No.
The end of
gotta have him on my team.
The end of February, Monday the 29th, JF Dubois will be returning to the show to promote his new book coming out the very next day. And then as we get into March and April, we've got Kyle Ferguson from Into the Nexus coming on. We've got Nine Ball from the West March Workshop coming on. Courtney, and I'm going to screw her name up, Oliphant? Timothy Oliphant. How do you say his last name?
Oliphant? Yeah.
Is it Oliphant? Okay. Courtney Oliphant from Chicks with Flicks, which is the greatest name for a podcast ever. And then a whole lot more. Lou Page is going to be coming on from Zombies Hate My Podcast towards the end of April.
Oh, he's fun times.
Oh, he is. It's a great lineup. So if you want to check that lineup up and get a confirmation of the dates and times, make sure you go to inkedgeekstudios.com/mindofageek. You can follow us on Twitter at IG_mindofageek. Excuse me. And you can leave a comment, ask a question for myself, or ask a question for an upcoming guest by sending an email to mindofageekpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can join us live in the chat room. Most of the time we try and record Mondays at 8:30 p.m. And you can find that at twitch.tv/Inked Geek Studios. I forget if it's Inked or IG, but yeah, it's Inked Geek Studios. Occasionally, based off of the guest schedule, we don't always get the 8:30 on Monday. So again, check that schedule at the website, and that will tell you the date and time that we record. And be sure to follow us on Twitch, and you'll just get a lovely little notification. And last but certainly not least, a big thank you to the patrons who help support IG Studios. And as always, if you enjoy the content that we provide for you here, and you want to give a little back to help us continue to push forward, go to patreon.com/IG Studios. Every little bit goes a very long way. So everyone that has or has considered supporting, we thank you very much. Mike, again, thank you, sir. This was a blast, and I look forward to chatting with you again here pretty soon.
Oh, thank you.
And to everybody on the interwebs, good night.
Good night.